Hi, folks. Welcome to the Ride Don't Hide Sponsorship 101 webinar, part of the Ride Don't Hide Learning and Development series. Today's webinar is hosted by Ariel Schneer, the National Director of Development with CMHA National, and myself, Erin Terwissen, the National Event Manager with CMHA National, responsible for Ride Don't Hide. Our goals for today are twofold. We want to, for ride sites who might not have resource development staff or fundraising expertise on staff, we want to present a high-level introduction to what sponsorship is all about. And for ride sites who do have fund development expertise and staff, part of our goals for today is to create a consistent approach across the Ride Don't Hide brand to our partnership strategy, who we look for with sponsorships, how we're looking to add value to those relationships. And also we want to start to lay the groundwork for the 2019 Ride Don't Hide sponsorship strategy and the next webinar coming out to you, which will be a sponsorship 201, which will be all about the particulars of the Ride Don't Hide 2019 sponsorship package. The topics we're going to cover for today's webinar include the difference between sponsorship and philanthropy, the overall Ride Don't Hide sponsorship philosophy, how to put together sponsorship partnership proposals, how to find prospective sponsors, crafting a pitch, and how to service and steward those relationships. This is all, like I mentioned, this is all going to be presented at kind of a high level, big picture perspective, as opposed to the particulars of the 2019 sponsorship package, which will be coming out to you in the next couple of weeks. So we'll start with the differences between sponsorship and philanthropy. Sponsorship is a fundamentally different animal than charitable giving or philanthropic donations. So donations are usually, they're gifts. They're made at a kind of a sacrifice to the giver. They, in terms of corporate donations, they're gifts towards a charitable mission. They're tax receipted. They tend to be made through a corporate foundation or a corporate social responsibility committee or a community engagement department, and they're just straight out gifts. The donor isn't expecting much in return. However, corporate donations can help a corporation through things like brand alignment, through boosting employee morale, and through offsetting taxes with that tax receipt. Sponsorship, on the other hand, offers a very tangible, concrete financial return to the sponsor. It has a measurable return on investment. It's not tax receipted. The sponsorship dollars usually come through a marketing or communications department budget, and it offers, like I said, a specific dollar value to the sponsor. Sponsorships help a corporation to reach a target audience or a specific demographic, to access marketing or advertising space within a kind of preferred space, like an event, and it helps a corporation to leverage the goodwill that a target audience, such as our Ride Don't Hide ridership, has for a cause such as mental health. Sponsorship these days is not strictly about logo placement. It's not about the amazing work that CMHA is doing or the urgent need we have for more resources for our programs. And it's not about enhancing, it's not about what CMHA can do to enhance the sponsor's brand or to help them create brand awareness. For example, one of the big five banks is not going to want to partner with us because they need help increasing market share. We can't help one of the big five banks build brand awareness. They already enjoy significantly more market share than we have with Ride Don't Hide. So sponsorship is about providing an opportunity for our sponsors to align themselves with people who care about mental health in a space that's about mental health. So our role to the sponsors, our job at CMHA, is to build a bridge from those sponsors to the target audience that they're trying to reach, which in this case would be our riders and donors and volunteers and other stakeholders. And part of our role is to help them nurture that relationship. It's not just about giving them advertising space in front of that audience. It's about demonstrating their care for mental health and helping them leverage that opportunity. And the better we can build that bridge and help them nurture that relationship, the more value we are to a sponsor, and that will trickle down into more dollars available for our programs. Sponsorship isn't, as I was saying, it's not about brand alignment or logo placement anymore. Our riders and our other stakeholders are much too sophisticated to be swayed just by seeing a potential sponsor's logo on our signage. And that kind of real estate and that kind of visual noise at our event, having, the Ride Don't Hide logo next to a sponsor's logo, isn't going to be enough to build that relationship between our sponsors and our riders. So it's not about simply the sponsor saying to the riders, if you love this event, you should love our brand. It's more about the sponsor saying to our riders, we know you love this event and we love Ride Don't Hide too. So we've thought of some ways to make Ride Don't Hide better for you and some ways to improve mental health in your community. And that's the key. So the sponsor's job is to add value to our riders. We're just the conduit through which that happens. And so one of the kind of the lenses that we want to apply to building partnerships within Ride Don't Hide is that we want all of our partnerships to be meaningful partnerships. So you might have heard the term around sponsorship, win-win-win partnerships. Sponsorships will only work when they're a win for all of the parties involved. They must be a win for our riders whose experience of Ride Don't Hide or their life outside Ride Don't Hide is improved in some way by what the partnership offers. It has to be a win for our sponsors who get an opportunity that they can leverage to meet their own business goals. And obviously, we want it to also be a win for CMHA, who can then reduce the cost for Ride Don't Hide and increase the resources we have available for the mental health programs that are changing the lives of Canadians in our communities. And one of the ways that one of the outcomes of finding the meaning is that it allows us to add value to all of our different stakeholders. Ride Don't Hide is just one of dozens or even hundreds of charity events that take place in your community and across Canada. So to stand out, and when we're pitching our potential sponsors, we need to focus on what makes Ride Don't Hide special to our riders. Not just what makes it special for CMHA, but why are our riders involved? Why do they show up? Why do they get out there on their bikes and be seen standing up for mental health in their communities? And then how can we tap into that meaning to help our sponsors build relationships? So we want to look for those partnerships that add value beyond just a dollar amount. We want to choose sponsors who can make Ride Don't Hide or even our riders' lives just a little bit better for their customers who are also our participants. So we want to shape the terms of our partnerships to ensure that something of value is being offered to our riders and participants and other stakeholders, whether that is some way to enhance the Ride Don't Hide experience or something that helps them outside the event, even something as small as coupons and discounts, as long as that is going to be meaningful to your riders.
So now we're going to move into talking a little bit about finding sponsors and, where we're going to look for sponsors, how we're going to approach them, and what to do and what to say. So how to find sponsors. So we're going to start in our own backyard. We're going to take a look at who have you worked with in the past, who are some of your existing vendors, what added value can Ride Don't Hide offer to your already existing donors or corporations that you've worked with in the past. So really, it's always best to start with who you know. Go to people that you've already developed relationships with and start there. Think about what Ride Don't Hide can really bring to the table. And don't think about it as double dipping or over asking if you're offering some added value to your donors or corporations or foundations that you've already worked with in the past.
Technical difficulties.
So start with connections. Who do you know? Who do your employees know? Who does your board know? Who does your neighbor's cousin's dog walker know? Really just think about everyone in your circle, your family, your friends, your colleagues, and really use your board members. Ask them to identify some connections that they may have, introduce you to people. So really, again, just going back to starting with people that you already have some sort of a relationship built with already. So here we're going to outline a little bit of a treasure map for you. So you can start with brainstorming with your team directly in your office. You really don't know who other people might know unless you ask. So usually sitting down with people and asking them to identify 2 or 3 individuals that may be interested is a really great start, because you really never know who some of your colleagues are connected with. So that's always a great starting point. And then take a look at your own connections, board members' connections, again, vendors, community connections, and just really start to build it out from there. And then also even dig a little bit deeper and list some of the resources that these connections may have, possibly for in-kind donations, other connections within the community, and really just do a little bit of deeper digging into some of the people that you're going to approach, and see who they may be connected to as well, just so you have some ideas in the back of your head. And then, really just list the reasons that these connections might want to be involved with CMHA or Ride Don't Hide. Would it be to impress their boss, to learn a new skill, maintain or develop social connections? So really just think about why they may want to be involved. So dream big. That's always what I say. Start with your dream sponsors. Who are some of the biggest employers in your community? Who's the ideal Ride Don't Hide sponsor in your community? And then everyone's process is going to be a little bit different in terms of approaching sponsors. Typically how I like to do things is start with an introductory call. I always find it really easy to just pick up the phone, call, introduce yourself, give a really short, brief overview of CMHA and what we do, some of our priorities, some of our programs, some of what we've accomplished over the past year. I like to keep that pretty short and sweet, not overwhelm them with a ton of information about CMHA and what we do, but just to give a short little brief overview. Same thing again, going into a little bit of a Ride Don't Hide snapshot, I guess we can call it. Let them know a little bit about the event, some of the highlights and successes from last year, and some of our key plans and key goals for the year coming up. And then from there, after that introductory call, I really like to right then and there try and set up a face-to-face meeting. Get in front of them, go to their office, go meet with them, and really start to develop that personal connection and relationship, and take it from there. Typically, I also follow up with an email after, possibly to just summarize some of what we talked about on our call. I find when you're talking to donors, whether it's in a face-to-face meeting or on the phone, it's really important to just listen and learn. A lot of the time, the donors will actually tell you exactly what they're looking for. And that makes it a lot easier for you to then go back and work with your team and brainstorm exactly how you're going to pitch them. So one of the most important things is to really just listen to your donors, because they will point blank tell you what they're interested in, what they'll fund, what they're absolutely not interested in funding. So really just take some time to listen and get to know them and some of their priorities as well, whether it's by phone or in a face-to-face meeting. So usually, again, a little discovery session. What do they need to know to go and move it up the chain, or to let someone else in their organization who may have decision-making power know everything they need to know? And how can Ride Don't Hide really help them and align with their goals and their vision and their mission? And then the final step is usually to put it in writing. Whether it's filling out a proposal, sending some sort of a one-pager or a letter of intent, but formalizing the process. But typically that process all starts with a lot of introductory calls and meetings. Submitting blind proposals isn't nearly as successful if you haven't done the groundwork leading up to that and figuring out exactly what they want. So just a little reminder, we want to look for sponsors who are mental health and addiction friendly. We want to make sure that they're aligned with our vision and what we do, and vice versa. So just a quick resource for you is you can check out Imagine Canada's Caring Company program, and the website is listed below, and that will go into a little more detail about looking for sponsors with more of an ethical lens. So we're going to dig in a little bit to prospect research. What kind of information are you going to need? So of course you're going to need a contact, where to find them, and how to reach those key decision makers that you're really looking to connect with. You're going to want to dig into their brand. Who are they? What makes them unique? How do they align with Ride Don't Hide and CMHA? For example, look at some of the communities that they work in. Where are they located? Try and find those connections. between Ride Don't Hide, CMHA, and whoever you're pitching. You're going to want an overview of who they are, what their revenue is, some of their previous charitable giving, who have they sponsored before, are they already sponsoring another bike ride, because that may rule them out. Do they have a specific geographic focus? So a high level kind of overview of what they're already engaged in and what they're looking for. Again, any possible linkages to CMHA, do they have a branch in, the same community? Finding any possible linkages and connections. What are their business goals as well for the year? What are they hoping to accomplish? New business? Is it increased sales? Is it contacts for conversion for them? What are they really looking for their business? You also want to dig into their marketing plan and their budget. Look into where and how they spend their marketing dollars and how can Ride Don't Hide really further these goals for them. That's what they're really going to be looking for. And then some other affiliations. What other charities do they support? At what level? This will give you a good idea of really how much you're going to ask them for. And then any recent and relevant news and items. It's always great just to look at some of the stuff that they've been currently working on or have recently released. Helps with conversation, building a relationship with them. And it also shows that you've done your homework. You've done your research and, you're not just going and approaching a bunch of different corporations or individuals and, using the same tailored pitch. It shows that you put some time and thought into this. Okay, so where can we find this information? A lot of this information will actually be available on the sponsor's website. So most of, for example, the big 5 banks, they'll all have a corporate social responsibility page. Reading their annual reports is always really helpful. Look at any recent press releases or gift announcements. Check out who's on their board. Also, that may be another in for you as well. You may know one of the board members there. Look at their financial situation, recent developments. All of this stuff you'll be able to easily access on their websites. So that's always a great place to start. And then, social media accounts is another big one. A lot of them will post on Twitter and LinkedIn about some of their recent charitable givings. Charity Village, if you have access to that, is a great website. It's a directory of funders and basically provides you with a whole overview. Like I just mentioned before, we'll talk about their revenue, key, decision makers. It will give you a high level overview of everything. So Charity Village is a great resource. Google as well is great. You can filter for some recent news. Google Finance or Globe Investor. You can look at other charities supporter information, annual reports, event reports. You can check on the CRA and see if you can find anything on their website. And then again, there's some paid prospect research databases such as Grant Connect, Big Online. There's tons out there. So those are all available as well. Okay, so we're going to actually go into very high level about the sponsorship pitch.
So coming soon, we will be providing you with the Ride Don't Hide 2019 sponsorship particulars. Also, we are working to extend the planning cycle, particularly around sponsorship. So we are hoping to make available the 2020 sponsorship packages in the spring of 2019. So keep your eyes open for that. What we're going to talk about now is going to be a bit more general, a bit more high level, and these pieces will be available, or at least the 2019 sponsorship packages will be available in the upcoming weeks.
Okay, so the pitch. So you want to really know your demographic. Who is your audience and who are you helping your sponsor access? So you can refer to the rider survey that was completed in the summer of 2018 to try and get some of that information on your specific demographic. Just so you know, when you're talking to potential sponsors, who are they going to have access and exposure in front of? So who is your sponsor? What is their brand? Again, their objectives, their priorities, their business goals, their target audience, and what does your sponsor want that audience to do or to know? Again, something super important is to know your recognition opportunities and what exposure can you offer to your sponsor. So how can you really add value above and beyond just slapping their logo onto a sign? Again, know your leverage opportunity. What can your sponsor do to demonstrate their love for Ride Don't Hide to our audience? And how can they build emotional connection to make the event better for our riders? Because that's ultimately our goal, is to really just enhance the experience for our riders. So in crafting a partnership proposal, you really want to focus on the sponsor's needs, not CMHA's. So we want to spend more time focusing on their needs, not really the bulk of the pitch being why CMHA needs their money or their support. So how can the sponsor leverage this partnership? How can this proposal move from the advertising space you're selling to the results that the sponsor really wants to see? And this is the difference if you're looking at it from like a sales perspective between features and benefits. And what is the value of the sponsorship and what return on investment are you offering to the sponsor? So who? Many times the point of contact published for a prospective sponsor is typically the gatekeeper. A lot of the times, especially the larger the corporation is, the more people it's going to have to go through in order to get approved. So when you're looking for who to reach out to set up that face-to-face meeting or have that phone call, a lot of the time the names you're going to get are, the sponsorship manager, the grant officer, or community engagement coordinator, who are typically the people that will start vetting through the proposals and reading through them, but those aren't the key decision makers that are going to be able to approve your request. So you want to make sure you're really reaching out to decision makers at your prospective sponsor. So whether that be, the owner, partner, founder, a marketing director, or manager, those are the kinds of people that you're really looking to reach out to. And something that you can easily do if, you're using a software that may provide you the name of the grant officer is you can pick up the phone and call them and say, I'm looking to, are you the right person to be speaking to about this? And they may say, here, you need to connect with this person who's more of the key decision maker and may, right off the bat, put you in touch with that person that you're ultimately trying to reach. So when? The earlier, the better, which is why we've been doing a lot of talking about extending our planning cycle, because we know that it takes some time, doesn't happen overnight. There's lots of key players and people involved in making decisions and lots of time and effort that goes into, putting together sponsorship proposals. So the earlier we can start, the better, which is why we're really trying to extend our planning cycle here and give you as much time as possible to really get out there and hit the ground running. So the window of time is really not based on when we or your staff has the capacity or chance to reach out, but rather when the sponsors are setting their marketing budgets, priorities and partnerships for the year, season, or quarter. And typically that happens around year end for them, and their year end, it will all be different depending on who you're approaching, but around December is usually a good time to go in there and pitch. The window opens when our plans are set and when we really have something concrete and certain to offer our sponsors. And the window closes when sponsors have already allocated their budget and run out of time to implement and actually leverage the plan that's been put together. So recognizing this again, we're really working on lengthening that cycle so that we've got plenty of time to approach our sponsors.
So one of the most significant pieces, in fact, the most significant piece, happens after we make a pitch and get the deal. And that's all about servicing the partnership and then stewarding our sponsors. So really, most of the work, like I said, happens after we reach the signed deal. About 25% of our time around sponsorship should be done on research, on cultivating relationship, and on actually making the pitch and getting to a signed deal. About 50% of our time will be on activating that partnership and helping our sponsors leverage the opportunities that we're presenting, and about how we report on progress, report on outcomes, report on impact to our sponsors. And then a significant chunk of time, at least 25%, should go into stewardship and ongoing communications with our partners, making sure that all of our sponsors feel like they're really part of the Ride Don't Hide family and like they are getting the return, both financial in terms of increased business and in terms of impact, recognizing that they are having a significant impact on the mental health well-being of their community, and ongoing communications around that. The reason being for this is that the better we do our jobs around servicing these partnerships, building relationships with these sponsors, and stewarding those relationships, the easier it gets year after year to go back to them and say, look, we had a really successful partnership last year. We were able to deliver X, Y, and Z to you in terms of your return on investment. And it makes that whole cultivation and pitching process that much simpler and that much easier going forward. So how we activate the sponsorship, how we support the sponsor in leveraging the opportunity, communicate and interact with them is what's going to ensure a long-term relationship, and that we're not starting from like net new ground zero each year and trying to identify new partnerships and new sponsors. Ideally, we want to get to the point where we are all signing multi-year agreements with our sponsors for Ride Don't Hide. So when we pitch a potential sponsor, we're presenting them with a 2 or 3 or 5 year plan in terms of how they can help us and we can help them to grow Ride Don't Hide in these relationships together. And as always, we want to apply the value added lens to this relationship. So how are we adding value to our sponsors even after the partnership is over? Are we able to provide them with access to our audiences in terms of research or surveys, keeping in mind that we always want to do this within reason and make sure that it's executed respectfully and in a way that adds value to our riders and donors and stakeholders? Are we offering our sponsors perhaps opportunities to network with other sponsors for business to business, building business to business profile or opportunities? Can we offer our sponsors education, workshops, or other mental health services within their workplace? And what are some other ways that outside the actual partnership itself that we can continue to cultivate these relationships to build that long-term, big picture, year-over-year success? So the next steps coming soon, as we mentioned, will be the Sponsorship 201 webinar, which will be all about Ride Don't Hide 2019 sponsorship. What the different recommended levels are, what some of the opportunities are, marketing materials, and so on. So the webinar will be coming soon, as will the actual sponsorship guidelines themselves, and the marketing and communications materials should be following in hopefully about a month to 6 weeks, depending on when you're actually listening to this. In the meantime, if you have any questions or ideas or suggestions or concerns at all about any of the materials we've presented or about anything related to Ride Don't Hide, please feel free to reach out directly to us at the national office. I believe I've connected with most of you already at this point. And if I haven't, look forward to doing that very, very soon. You have my coordinates here within this presentation, and they can also be found in most of the Ride Don't Hide materials coming out. So if you ever want to pick up the phone or drop me a line, this is what our national team is here for Ride Don't Hide. So please feel free to reach out to us at any point. We hope this has been helpful to you. And if there's any additional information or support you'd like, again, please drop me a line or reach out, and we'd be so happy to talk with you about that. Good luck out there, everybody, on building these partnerships, and looking forward to building on the success of Ride Don't Hide. We'll talk to you soon in the Sponsorship 201 webinar. Take care.